Fred, thanks for joining the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Caleb. How you doing today?
Oh, pretty good. Just trying to chug along while Dave gets to chill on the beach. And um,
Well, when he comes back, you might be sunburned.
that is true. And Dave gets very, very red. um, Fred, I'm glad I have you here because I actually wanted to quickly dive in. I don't know if you saw this, but Lindy's came out with their preseason magazine recently, and they do their anonymous coaches speaking on programs. And an anonymous coach speaking on Tennessee wouldn't put his name to it, basically said Josh Heupel was lucky because Jeremy Pruitt found Hooker a diamond in the rough. And then he said, quote, Joe Milton is not the guy. They've got to find somebody else. With Milton, it'll be hard to replicate offensively what they did last year. What are your thoughts on an anonymous coach saying that?
You know, that anonymous coach probably came from Michigan. But
Never thought of that.
because he left Michigan. But I've watched Joe over the years, and I think he did a really good job in that Clemson game and not having the top two receivers. And I know that's just one game, but from what I've heard, he did a really good job down at the Peyton Manning camp, and people came away impressed with him. So sometimes you will have a hater, and then just because one person said something, don't mean nothing. It don't mean a thing at all. So I'm not really worried about what anyone says. Let's see what happens.
And oftentimes when coaches feel that way about a quarterback they've seen or may have worked with that didn't work out, it may work out elsewhere. Couldn't that just be a reflection negatively on that coach that maybe they didn't know how to tailor quarterback skills?
That also is another part of it, yes. Just because you look at a guy, a good coach will make an average player good and a good player great. And a great player is just going to be a great player regardless. But your coaching style and what you teach, I can go back to every position coach is different, and depending on your client, the guys that you have in your room. Like if you're a quarterback coach, and you have guys and you're a quarterback guy that's what you do. You know how to make them better. You don't just say, "Hey, this is my way of doing everything, and this is the only way it's going to be done." Sometimes you got to tailor it to how that kid is or what that kid does. I learned that from being a coach. Coached at CAK High School in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I had guys who were completely different type of players. Some that could only play zone, some could play man. But I had to learn how to figure out which way was best to teach that kid because each one is different. And just because Hendon Hooker did it this way, Joe may not do it that way, and Joe may be better doing it in another way. But I hate the fact that these guys always want to come out and say they want to be anonymous. They don't want you to know who it was. Hey, man, if you say something, stand on it. Plain and simple. Stand on it.
Yeah, it's like it reminds me of the NFL draft when all these anonymous scouts will say stuff, and it's just like they're willingly hurting a player's draft stock, and sometimes maybe even hurting their future and they won't even put their name on it when they say it. A lot of times,
yeah. And that's a problem to me. That's the Skip Bayless that's the Skip Bayless situations I hate having to see. I remember a few years ago when Skip Bayless talked so bad about LeBron James in the championship game against Dallas, and I remember Mark Cuban going on there and roasting him, just kind of like, you don't know what you're talking about because you didn't play the game. You understand it from a different point of view. You understand it from looking at it. You don't understand it from playing it.
I actually remember that very well. Yeah, and I think Skip Bayless learned the hard way because I think he crossed a couple of lines with Shannon Sharp that, I think he kind of learned that maybe maybe don't trash a Hall of Fame athlete's career to his face.
Yeah, that was I couldn't understand why he didn't. And that's the thing for me. Like, you talk about it like you actually did it yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, what's your credibility? Just tell me what your credibility is to tell that guy he didn't have a good career.
Yeah.
Really?
Exactly. Getting to so going back to Milton, it's funny you brought him up at the Manning camp last weekend. Caleb Jaru and I were on Monday talking about this, and I'm just curious, what are some things you think he could have picked up at the Manning camp? Because we do know Josh Heupel's offenses very different from anything Peyton Manning himself played in, where,
Mm-hmm.
shorter drops, kind of quick, get rid of the ball quickly, not really going through reads as much. So what are some things Joe Milton could have picked up from Peyton Manning, or any of the Mannings for that matter, when he was at the
I
Manning?
mean, for one, technique. That's one thing that never changes. You can always get better at that, regardless of what offense you run. It's your technique. It's how you throw the ball, how you position your foot, your follow through. What do you see? What are you reading? Now, if you're going to talk about getting better with Peyton Manning, the one thing Peyton knew how to do was read defenses. Regardless of what play you were running, he knew how to do that. And if you can get that information from Peyton Manning and understand how he read defenses, understand how you can hold a safety or hold a corner or hold a linebacker for the short route when he wants that one behind him, those type of things. Those are things that you get, to see with Peyton Manning and learn from him. That's like learning from Tom Brady. Like, they know how to manipulate defenses when they drop back. And that's something that you can do. That's something that you want if you're a quarterback. Because if you don't know how to read, one prime example, Baker Mayfield didn't know how to read defenses when he got to the NFL, and it showed. He's kind of still trying to learn it now, but he didn't know how to read defenses when he got to the NFL. That's why he didn't do very well. I mean, that's something that you can never take a back seat to, or you got to be able to understand those things. That's part of your technique and your preparation as well.
Right.
And who better to learn that from than Peyton?
That's very true. You also dropped he who must not be named Tom Brady. I don't know if you noticed the message board on the right is for some reason not fans of Tom Brady. So yeah,
they just might.
I mean, I still maintain. I think you might like the reason, because people were trying to say, they were trying to make fun of him and Mike DeBoer underachieving at Michigan, but like, okay, if Michigan had started Tom Brady the whole year in 1999 instead of that Drew Henson Tom Brady thing, they probably win the national title, don't they? That season.
I don't know. What year was that?
That was 99.
I don't know if they won the national championship.
You don't think they win the national title?
No.
But they would have at least gotten there.
Because they're a Big Ten team, they may have possibly gone undefeated and still would have got their ass whooped in the championship game. Florida State was going to whoop them anyway. So
yeah,
they weren't on the same level with those guys.
Yeah, that was that. Because I remember I remember after you guys beat Florida State in 99 or in 98, I remember Bobby Bowden kind of saying, well, we were expecting 99 to be our year anyway. For Florida State, it was like them being in the title game, they thought they were there a year early because they knew 99 was their year.
Yeah, that's what they felt like, and it was. They won a national championship in 99. I don't think anybody would have beat them. And we shot ourselves in the foot against Arkansas and Florida. So I think those two losses for us seal the deal. But if we win Arkansas game and go to the SEC championship, we're probably back in the championship game again. So Michigan, there's a lot of ifs. If, I don't put anything on ifs. He had a great career in the NFL, and whatever happened to him in college happened to him in college. That's right. I don't see him. I didn't think he was a great quarterback in college. I think he became one the way he prepared behind a all-pro quarterback in New England. I mean, he didn't walk into a situation where he had to start at all, for some years. You had Drew Bledsoe sitting there, was one of the best quarterbacks that ever played the game too. So he went into a situation where a guy was already a top quarterback, but in order to beat him, you got to go out there and do everything right. The little things count more than anything.